All right, so I'm here with Father Tony Scannell. Father Tony, you worked at St. Lawrence Seminary for years.
I can remember seeing St. Lawrence Seminary for the first time, probably in late 1930s, because my dad was a salesman and he took my brother and me on the road with him once in a while. And we were coming from Fond du Lac on that road that is Fond du Lac Avenue, I guess now, going into
Sure.
Calvary. We make a turn in the bend and there it was. And I remember saying to my dad, "What is that?" He said, "That's a seminary." And I have never forgotten that. And I never realized that someday I would be going there and it would be such an important part of my life. So in 1943, when I graduated from 9th grade at St. Joseph's School in Fond du Lac, and I came up here for the second time. During the summer, I came up just to see it with my mother and dad. So I came up there to go to school, to begin the school year. I remember driving from Highway 23 onto W, going north and seeing the hill there with that beautiful spire crowning it. And I said to the priest that was driving, "I got an empty feeling in my stomach." And he said, "That feeling is going to get emptier as you go along."
Do you remember the priest's name?
Father Schulteis was his name. He was an associate or assistant at St. Joseph's in Fond du Lac.
Okay.
And we had marvelous, Father Monsignor Reardon was the pastor, and we had about 16 priests in 14 years. Almost all of them I think all of them went to St. Lawrence Seminary
Really?
in those days, so there's a great deal. Of course, the seminary is much different now than it was then. That big steeple was the parish church, and that's where everybody congregated. And in the mornings, the priests who taught it in the seminary would have masses in the side altars all around there, like at 6:30 in the morning. I remember the older guys, would serve masses there. But it was a beautiful church. The Laurentianum, the big building there, was the main building. That's still standing. And the place that just burned down this last January in 2014 was St. Joseph's Hall. That was a dormitory. I remember that part. We had the choir rooms where we practiced the choir. Downstairs were some rooms where we would practice our talks when we were, giving speeches and things. And St. Thomas Hall was the other building, maybe the only other building there. That's where we had our gymnasium. We played basketball, and the roof was so low you couldn't arch very high because the ball would hit it, bounce that. So it was a wonderful time. We had about 210 students, as I remember, something like that.
Okay. And so you said that the church was the parish church.
That's right.
For Mount Calvary.
For Mount Calvary.
So what years was that? That was so the entire town would go up to the hill.
That's right.
For church.
And the only thing still standing now are those steps that lead from the parking, from the road there. Are those huge steps that would go up to the front of the church. Now it's.
And did that church burn down?
No. When they decided that the monastery had to be rebuilt, they decided to move the church down to down below the hill. But we needed a much bigger chapel. I think in 1969, the new monastery and with this new chapel and everything was built, and then the parish church had moved down to it became Holy Cross, the same name, but moved to the foot of the hill there.
Okay. What about the history of St. Lawrence? What do you know about the history from way back?
Remarkably, the Capuchins were brought to this part of the country by two diocesan priests from Bavaria. Well, actually, I think they were actually Swiss priests who wanted to become Capuchins and bring the Capuchin order to the United States. So when they came here, they were still diocesan priests. And the Capuchin order sent a Capuchin with them to be their novice master and to train them to become Capuchins. But after a while, he was more interested in preaching and working among the Indians. His first name was Anthony, but I don't remember his last name. So he kind of abandoned that, and the priests kind of took on the role themselves until somebody else could happen. Their names were Francis Haas and Bonaventure Frey. They're buried there on the hill. Now, they're the founders of our Capuchin order here in this part of the United States.
And they showed up on the scene here in the area in like the 1850s.
That's right. It was around in the 1850s. It may
like
well have been the
1856 or something,
yes,
maybe.
around there. And their first effort to build a monastery burned down on Christmas Eve. Uh, and they were housed then by the sisters, the Notre Dame sisters on the other hill.
And that was like in the 1890s, I think. Is that right or no?
Well, it may have been before that. I'm not sure about those dates exactly.
Sure.
When that part burned down. They had to rebuild. So it's an amazing story of faith that Father Francis stayed there on the hill and kept things as men began to join the order. Father Bonaventure went all over the country and all over the world raising funds sent back so they could rebuild the first seminary, first church, the first parish church, work with the sisters in Fond du Lac, the Ignatian sisters and all.
And so the sisters that are up on the hill, or that were up on the hill for years, when were they on the scene when these guys showed up or no?
No, there were no sisters on the hill at all. All the work was done by brothers.